All right, how we looking? How we looking? How we looking? Desktop audio seems to be perfectly good. We've got good old Slay the Spire music on in the background. Microphone levels look perfectly nice. Nice. You can see the good old arena screen. Great. You'd love to see that. We have some stuff to pull up today and to talk about. We've got a little sneak peek of some of the things I'm going to be talking about today during our state of the state of it's. I call these state of Brawl because I don't know what else to call them. They're really more like personal blogs than anything else. So if you have a suggestion on what exactly I should be calling these seasonal segments, by all means, go ahead and leave a comment below. Or if you're here now, you can go ahead and you can whisper it in chat, and I'll take a look at there. Promise. Actually, you know what? Hold on. I just remembered. Because I'm not... Let me sit up a little straighter. Every time. Actually, hold on. You know what? Yeah. Let me scooch closer to the camera. Oh, wrong direction. There we go. Let's have a conversation. Grab my mic. There we go. Very good. And in case you're wondering about the little guy over here, that's Excalibur. He's my sister slime. Anyway, so we have things to cover. The first thing that I am going to mention, as always, is week plans and stuff like that. So originally I was going to be streaming the Duskmourn release live. I was going to start cracking packs on stream and then, start brewing and updating some stuff. Basically, I know that I'm going to want to spend all day messing with new cards, so why not make a stream out of it? But then I looked at my schedule and I was like, wait, since when am I going from like streaming once a week back up to doing like 4 different streams? And that's because I've got right now I tentatively had Frog Fractions planned with Kyria on Wednesday. That's been moved around a couple of times for medical reasons on her part. And then Friday I have plans to join our friend Lila Morningstar for some Satisfactory because it's her birthday today, and so Friday's gonna be her birthday stream. Well, I guess she's streaming birthday stuff today. She's building Gunpla today, but we're throwing the party on Friday basically. So, and then I have D&D planned on Saturday, and since my wife and I go out to the shop for that is also a track and a half. So basically, I had so much stuff just lining up in 1 week that I had to go, no. If I try and stream an extra day, I am going to ruin myself. So, unfortunately, the premiere stream got axed in favor of being able to hold on to this one, and then, being able to do stuff with friends. So that's fine. That's currently where we're at right now. I'm still maintaining a 1 stream a week on my own, unless I'm doing the collab stuff. For example, we'll still be doing Raft, not this Friday, but next Friday, since that'll be the first Friday of the month. And then, let's see. I have temporarily put the Nuzgold, the Heart Gold Nuzlocke on hiatus until such a time that I can actually get around to doing it, because god damn, there's just this was basically a lost month in terms of like streaming. I'm that's how life be. And when you're a part-time streamer like I am, you just I mean, you have the flexibility to do stuff like that, right? Because you just have a small audience. It's like, well, only a few people actually are watching this to begin with, so say levy. Not like I'm disappointing anyone. But that's okay. Anyway, I still wanted to hold on to the Magic stream, and here we are. So what are we doing today? Well, today, as I said before, we are doing the State of Brawl, or I guess our Brawl blog. Our seasonal Brawl blog. Our seasonal blog on Brawl. I'm gonna have to workshop that. Anyway. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about our experiences this past season. We're going to be doing a tier list of where we think the new commanders stand in terms of Brawl power level. And then I'm also going to be talking about some goals and changes that I'm going to be trying to make in regards to my Magic content going forward. Ugh. I hate calling it, every time I use the word content when referring to stuff, it just, ugh. I feel bad. I guess in terms of like Magic, it really is just content. I'm not necessarily doing anything artisan with these. As I've mentioned in my You Want to Brew and Brawl video, Brewer's blog. There we go. Oh, you know what? That's a fantastic name. Okay, we'll go. Let's see. I will tell you about Brewer's blog. That's a fantastic name. Kellen, hey, thank you so much for stopping by. So yeah, welcome to the Bloomburrow edition of Brewer's blog. Let's get started, shall we? First thing that we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be pulling off arena here. I'm going to bring up, let's see, where's my... Where is web browser? I want to switch this over. Why do I have some? There we go. Okay. There we go. All right. Now we're over to the web browser. Okay. Looks good? Okay. So first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at the untapped.gg stats. And this is to kind of talk about my personal experience with decks that I've built before we go into the tier list, kind of build some credibility for anyone who's watching the stream later on or is unfamiliar with our work. Essentially, I use untapped.gg just to keep track of just some raw numbers. I'm going to include the disclaimer here that this is all basically my point of view experience and is not representative of the greater, wider Brawl community experience. So, for example, you may be, you know, I might have like a poor win rate against specific decks or specific archetypes, but that's not going to represent necessarily how well that specific deck is doing in the greater Brawl environment. Just me specifically. And then that's also going to be the basis for a lot of my thoughts and opinions that we're going to be sharing while we go through. So to start, let's see. Oh, hey, our collection progress is at 69%. Nice. Very nice. Overall statistics, 52% win rate. I have played 188 and 173. How much is that again? That is what? 200, 211, 226? Yeah, 226 matches, which I think is actually a lot less than what it was last season. But last season I was like really into trying out a bunch of the decks because it was Modern Horizons. Yeah. And unfortunately, Bloomburrow season has just kind of been hampered by a lot of what we saw happen to the rest of my life. A lot of stuff just happened. Like there were dentist visits, and then there was other projects that I was working on and other games I was trying. And so much of it was also just trying to brew stuff, and ugh. We also like didn't get to play as many games because there were less Magic streams. Like anytime that there's a Monday holiday, my Magic stream gets put off. Maybe I should like nudge that over to like a Tuesday or something. I don't know. But not streaming as much Magic definitely means I'm not playing as much Magic. So 200-ish on the lower end is honestly on my lower end in terms of just like Magic playing in general. Also because towards the end of the season, I tend to either start ramping up or start doing more Explorer games rather than Brawl. A lot of times I'll queue into the Explorer queue just to get my 3 to 4 wins and then cash out for the day, rather than just wanting to play Brawl and take the chance while playing a deck that's also fun. let's go ahead and take a look at some of those individual matchups. 52%. That's about where I'd like to be. I mean, I like to be on the positive side of 50% period, but I think if you're experimenting with a lot of stuff, you know, trying new decks, and you're still in that 50+% range, you're doing okay. That's just more personal experience than anything else. Color performance. This was what color performance. Huh. So this is like my personal color combinations. Okay, yep, pretty cool. Matchup numbers against blue-green. Oh god, what were we playing against that had a lot of blue-green this season? Nadu and most of this is probably still Nadu because I was doing a lot of Hell Q stuff. Also, a reminder that Hell Q is not real, but it is very effective for, you know, short. It is effective shorthand for communicating really powerful commander stuff, but you know, more later. Mono blue, definitely on the slightly worse side of that. Part of that is going to come from just brewing and trying to get decks built and set up. And if you're still trying to like experiment with a brew, you're naturally gonna have a harder time setting up against control, unless you just like get better. Black red, that's almost entirely gonna be the lizard deck. Sultai. Let's see. I was trying to get the combo deck working again. Oh wait, no. Right. I got these two mixed up. This is our matchups against the Weasel. This is our matchups against the Weasel, and the Weasel is actually like, it's easy to deal with if you have enough early game removal to take before, and then you can take over the game. But if you don't have that, then the Weasel just wins, usually on the spot, because they hit you and then they cast like an Emrakul or a Brass's Bounty to like accelerate out of control. The Sultai, very specifically, it's against Glarb, but also against the other Sultai commander decks, and I think I've been struggling more against the other Sultai commander decks. Nashi is another big part of this. Mono green stuff. It's currently set to matches. What am I like the worst against? Oh god, blue-white has been like the bane of my existence this season. Just really good blue-white control play. Part of what's going to happen via sponsoring today's change or today's goals. Anyway, really more interested in looking at the individual decks themselves. So like I was saying, did get a lot of play with the lizard deck. I'm surprised that it did as well as it did. Like, as just a really dumb aggro deck, like, Gev is effective. Gev is surprisingly effective. It's one of those decks that can only get better and get more efficient. And, you know, you can make some tweaks to help them out a little bit. You don't have to go all in on the lizard plan. This is where we can go ahead and switch back to... Hold on, can I just... Like, we've got the Gev deck right here. And I actually ended up enjoying this deck quite a bit because of its simplicity. Like, it's just lizard. It is literally just lizard theme, running, you know, the lizards that you can and then trying to win fast and aggressively. You get so much value off of Gev. It's actually really nice. And then the Hopping Mad, the frog deck. The deck that I was queued to show off for like 3 weeks in a row, where I was like, I want to play the frog deck on stream. I want to stream the frog deck. I want to stream the frog deck. And then holidays and stuff just kept getting in the way, so it took us forever to actually do the frog deck. I'm kind of surprised that the bird that what was it? Cal or Kels? Which deck was this? Kess, right? Castrol? I think Amy actually just put out a Castrol video. Yeah, it's Castrol, the Wind Crested. A lot of people like birds, and this deck ended up being fairly straightforward to put together. I think it still needs some help. I think adding in some Teferis would go a long way to making the deck a little more resilient, because it does kind of fall apart if Castrol's not on board to help give it that final push. But you're playing a blue-white tempo core here. And usually with a lot of evasion, that's usually enough to just get you over the edge. I did play a lot of Clothis. I play a lot of Clothis in general just because it's really easy to play mono red control, especially in creature heavy metas. She's also just really good in the control matchups, because assuming that they can't get rid of her. Like if it's against Grixis control and she sticks, that they have a hard time actually dealing with the enchantment, and then it blinks so many of the cards in their hand. I love it. Bats was another fun one. I was actually really surprised by the Vren deck. Vren deck being Relentless Rats. I didn't see that coming. I don't know why. Like, it was just one of those things where it's like, oh my god, this is so obvious. But it's like, you just get so lost in the weeds trying to think of like the really cool stuff that you missed the, no, just play Relentless Rats. Just play Relentless Rats and have a good time with it. Derivi's going to need a lot of work. I did get some matches in there. This is going to be one of the interesting ones. Over this past week, I decided that I was going to start working on some of the goals that we're going to talk about here in a bit. And one of those goals is more budget decks and also getting outside of my comfort zone in terms of like trying to play aggro decks or trying to play mid-range decks and playing something that's actually more traditionally control. And I've had a surprising amount of success with Malcolm, mostly by eating Nadu decks in Hellq. Hellq disclaimer, Hellq does not exist. And I will keep banning that drum until people finally accept it. I've also been trying a lot of different Giada builds, so that's something else to talk about. Pock is here. I was playing Pock literally just last night to get some dailies out, and I got a couple of consecutive losses. So before last night, the deck was sitting pretty good. I'm retooling the Lagrella deck. I was getting Sigarda ready for Duskmourn. Yora's always fun. Kalia's always doing okay. Weirdly enough, the Wu deck suffered, but we'll get a couple of new elves in Duskmourn, and I think there's some new tech that has come out and has helped out a lot that will make a Wu fine. Elcor, Liliana zombies. You can see the one of the Giada decks where that just absolutely bombed. I think that one was one of my original brews, maybe, I can't remember. And just more of the softer stuff. So we played a bunch of different decks today. I didn't even have all the raccoons, and the raccoons were doing okay. That's honestly kind of amazing. Yeah. And then, like, you know, the obligatory Plague Feather for a few games to see if the new cards work out, and then call it a season. So, honestly, we did get to play a lot of the brand new commanders. It was a really good season for brewing. You know, for me, Magic sets tend to be either brews or tune-ups. Bloomburrow was a very brew-heavy set for me, so was Modern Horizons. Duskmourn is going to be much more tune-heavy, so you're going to see a lot of the decks coming back, and you're going to see them updated. You're going to see them sporting some new tech. The Atraxa No Rares deck that I originally based off of Amy's video is going to be making its debut in terms of like how I've built or not built it, but you know, upgraded, tuned, made to my preferences, stuff like that. That's pretty great. And then let's see. So how do we feel about Bloomburrow in general? Honestly, I think Bloomburrow was just a really fun set. It was fun in the way that it gave us a lot of new avenues on Arena for decks that maybe they were like birds, where everyone already kind of had that deck in paper. Like, birds are a very, very popular archetype. But we also got a new Relentless Rats variant that actually drives with me better than most of the other Relentless Rats variants. We got to play bats. We got to play lizards. We got to play with frogs. And I still have a commander to mess around with and try and fix out for the upcoming season. So Just really, really good stuff. Actually, oh my god, Refi works very nicely with a lot of these survivors, huh? Okay, that's something that is something to think about. Excellent. So I feel good. I feel good about this season. And now we have the tier list. I went back and I watched my previous Brewer's blog video. I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to edit the titles for these so that way people know what they are. I'm also going to put a playlist out. Yeah, I think it would be really good to have these in a separate playlist too, so that way we have like gameplay and then we have records. So that's I'm going to make a quick note of that. Make a separate playlist for Brewer's blog. I think that would be pretty good. But yeah, we have the tier list set up here. And it's based off of what I ended up coming up with during the last episode, where we have super obnoxious tier. This is, you know, the Nadus of the world. This is where we put in Nadus, Italis, just Pox, just the really powerful, really prominent commanders. The ones that are literally everywhere, and it's really hard to actually fight them because they provide just so much singular value. There's actually Brawl level where, you know, maybe the card is really, really good, but it's kind of doing things on a power level that I would expect most Brawl games to be able to emulate. There's Fair Enough, which is the level obviously it's the level below that. It's on the tier list. But what I mean is, if you want to play a, quote, fair deck, where you just play creatures, you turn them sideways, and you win, or anything like that, that is its own tier. You're probably going to struggle against the super obnoxious tier. You can probably put up a decent fight against the actually Brawl level tier just by having some good solid deck building skills. And then, let's see. There's probably 99. These are cards where the commanders don't really function as a commander, or at least not as much as what you would probably want that commander to do. And so they're probably better off just being a support card rather than being their own dedicated card. You get a lot of uncommon commanders here. So when we get to Duskmourn, we do the Brewer's blog edition of Duskmourn. I expect most of the uncommon commanders to be in this pile. And then there's just the did not play category. This is where I can say I had no experience brewing the deck. I had no experience playing against or getting matched up against the deck. So any thoughts that I have about it would be purely speculatory, right? And we're going to see at least a couple of these hit that easy, especially when we get to the otters. So then let's go ahead and start things off with, let's say, the gods. Yeah. The elemental incarnations for Bloomburrow. So first off, we have the Bluefish commander, and I'm gonna actually bring up. Yeah, let's do it like this because you can't actually see the individual cards on the tier list. All right. So these are the commanders that we have, and I was gonna start with incarnation, but honestly, we can just go by color identity. Like the first one ends up being Beza, the Bounding Spring, and I can say right now off the bat, I have not seen anyone playing this card, not personally. So that's a very quick and very easy did not play tier for me. It looks okay, right? It looks okay. It looks like I gotta remember that. Beza looks like it's fine as a catch-up card. Maybe this is something that works out in a Death and Taxes style deck, but comes into play, make treasure if they have more lands, gain life if they have more life, make 2 fish tokens, draw a card. The effects seem really small. I would like to see this in some sort of a blink shell, maybe in terms of a Winona Doggy blink deck. But as a commander, I haven't seen it. So if you have seen a Beza deck, if you have a deck list or something that you want to share, you can go ahead and share that in the comments below. Make a link to Moxfield or something. Going on to blue, Kitsa Otterball Elite is another one that did not play. Like, it's a looter otter, it can copy spells, has a power requirement. I haven't seen anyone try it. Him? Her? I can't tell. I can't tell with otters. So yeah, Kitsa is also a did not play. Do not know. Illuge the Shoreless Sea, though. I have seen plenty of this fish. And it is indeed an elemental fish. Actually, it's funny. Because one of my headmates really, really loves both merfolk and the Kiora types. You know, the sea serpent, kraken, leviathan, octopus stuff. She calls them all fish, right? Like there's big fish and then there's fishies for merfolk and for the Kiora types. But actual fish, it's like doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's not a supported creature type, so like just forget it. Illuge the Shoreless Sea I have seen as the latest in mono blue commanders in terms of mono blue control, and I've seen why this card can be really good. The fact that it reduces the cost for the first instant sorcery spell by a blue less confused me at first. I thought it would only reduce the colored pips on the spell, but it can actually count for the X cost as well, for the generic cost. Meaning that a lot of the times they'll want to resolve the illuge. They can keep up a Dispel or any other 1 mana protection instant just to make sure that you can't remove it for 2 turns in a row. So you have to be able to like double kill spell on without any additional backup to try and get rid of it. In that sense, it can be very strong, but it's also very tempo heavy or tempo dependent. Yeah, very tempo dependent because they need to get Illuge going, and then Illuge triggers on enter or attacks. They have blink spells to help protect it, to help get more of those flood, so that is good for them. But then also they usually want to be attacking. Illuge can be a win condition on its own, which is good. But honestly, I think the biggest strength is that it's just another mono blue commander. Yeah. So like, I think it's one of those mono blue commanders where you see it and you go, okay, but I'm not playing, but at least I'm not playing against like Malcolm or Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think if you wanted to play mono blue control and you wanted something with a bit more punch, then Illuge is probably about there. I've had some bad losses to Illuge. I've also just like steamrolled Illuge decks before, so that's part of why I say that Illuge is probably one of the on the lower end of powerful blue commanders. Next up, we have Wick, the Hold Mind, and I don't think this is the commander for your rat deck. I think Vren is actually just a lot stronger, hence the thumbnail for today's stream. Wick the World Mind, in my mind, is actually probably better just as a support card. You can make a case for like it being fair. Like you can make a lot of rats in there. You can include a lot of the Grixis support. Wick does draw cards. The only time I've really played against Wick, I did end up getting that loss, I think. I think that was actually on stream too. So, based on my impressions, I can say fair enough. It's also not really like a support card for the 99, so it does have that going for it. It's a card that you actually need to build around. So I'm willing to put Wick into the fair enough tier. Even though it's technically a Grixis commander, should be sorted after all the fact. That's kind of whatever. On the other side of that, though, is Maha, its Feathers Knight. This is another interesting one. I have not had a chance to play against too much of this deck, or if I had, the matchup was so lopsided because of what my deck was doing versus what this deck wants to do. This deck, when it gets all the pieces together, can actually be really cool because it plays a lot of the death trigger cards and encourages a lot of good control. And then because it has flying and trample, it trades very favorably. But the decks that are trying to play Maha feel like they're trying to play a either mono black mid range, or they're trying to play like an 8-rack style Tiny Bone style deck. I don't know. I just have not seen enough of Maha to effectively put it at a higher power level. This is another lower tier one, and I feel like if you wanted to play mono black control, you're actually a lot better off going with like Alcatraz Bat God or something like that. Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest. This is a card that I did see a lot more of, especially early on. Whenever it enters... Oh, hold on. Got the... I'm at that point where like I'm constantly looking back and forth between my screen and OBS to make sure that I'm actually pulling things up. And good thing, too, because otherwise you would have just been staring at the tier list rather than like the actual glow up of the card. Anyway. So a Dragonhawk Fate's Tempest... It's a cool card in that it draws power, right? Whenever it enters or attacks, exile the top X cards, where X is the number of creatures you control, power 4 or greater, including itself. You may play those cards until your next end step. At the beginning of your next end step, it deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. So typically, people will go ahead, play this. They'll just take the 2 cards that are exiled as double shock. And then from there, the Dragonhawk can start snowballing by drawing them those extra cards. They can play the ones they want, get extra damage off the ones that they don't. And if it gets going, the Dragonhawk gets very good. Typically includes a lot of ramps, so that way the 5-drop can just come out swinging, or I guess come out flying, hit the air flying, as opposed to hit the ground running. And in some of those cases, it's very strong. It's kind of like Eluge in the sense that it really needs to be able to get ahead. If it falls behind, I feel like the catch-up is so much harder because the cards are impulsed rather than bottled, meaning that it's until the end of that turn as opposed to the end of the next turn, like a Reckless Impulse would be. It doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room, and it feels bad to see some of your really, really good cards get exiled. Now, there's no functional difference to a card being exiled and a card just being stuck at the bottom of your deck, but you know. As far as like power level goes, I think there are just so many more stronger, faster, or more efficient Mono Red commanders. The Eldrazi Dragon that we just had from Modern Horizons, I think, has a much stronger top end than Dragonhawk. I think Dragonhawk works better if you're playing it as, say, a dragon-themed deck, or if you're playing it as, like, mid-range. But at that point, you could very easily play a Chandra deck. There's a couple of different variants of Chandra that I think just annihilate this. There's also the Koth decks that are much more consistent and much more of a pain to deal with. So, like, on that scale, I think the Hawk is honestly just, you know, fair. But it's a deck that can stand on its own. So if you're getting in with Standard, or you open this while you're doing drafting or sealed pre-release stuff on Bloomburrow weekend, like, yeah, it's a fine place to start. Lumra, however, is the exception to all of these. Like, wow, okay, the white, the blue, the black, and the red mythics, they all, like, are either whatever or fine. But Lumra actually is worth mentioning. Kind of like the O'Hare from Caves of Ixalan. Like, the fact that this 6 mana has Vigilance and Reach, it's gonna mill, and then it brings back all the lands from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is a very good commander if you want to play that sort of mulch ramp style. That's oh god, what was it? Crime Scene Investigator? I'm gonna pull away from this real quick, just that way we can check. It was mill, land, return, did I leave the commander on? I did the section on. Aftermath Analyst. That's what it was. So if you like playing Aftermath Analyst style ramp with Blossoming Tortoise, maybe even with World Shaper, Argoth, stuff like that nature, then Lumra is really, really good. The fact that it has reach means that it actually did block a lot of the flying decks that I was trying to brew this season. Vigilance means that it can attack and play defense. Like, this is just easily, far and away, the strongest of all these elemental monocolor mythics from this set. And I'm kind of, not upset. I'm not upset, but I am rolling my eyes a little bit at, you know, white having a catch-up commander, black having a cool, but, you know, you do have better options, but, like, this is actually pretty decent. Eluge does some cool stuff. Dragonhawk is, you know, I do like that it's a dragon and a hawk. But then you have a bear, and the bear is just, like, the biggest fuck all to all of these. So, I think it's pretty clear where this is going. This is actually Brawl level. It's not POC. It is not, you know, put in every green. It's not, this is the command that you want for every single mono green deck or really oppressive style representation. It's still on a level of mechanically, this is very cool. And if Field of the Dead was in here, then, like, actually, I think that's the biggest issue. I feel like if we had Field of the Dead unbanned in Brawl, then Lumra would absolutely be one of the most played commanders. You could probably make a mention for, like, Puck or Nectar Bloom, any other number of... I mean, every deck was playing Field of the Dead back when Field of the Dead was legal. That's why it was banned. But no, Lumra is the first commander to really actually feel like a Brawl level commander so far in this discussion. Castro the Windcrested. This card I have had plenty of experience with. And how do I put this? I think Castro is good. I think Castro is probably a little more than just fine. The ability to cheat in extra birds is really good when you're playing like a the Raid Hawk. Any plan that you're playing, one of those sacrifice birds, utility birds, just pulling extra birds out from the graveyard when they've already been bolted. I think that's good. However, the fact that Castro is 5 mana, is a 4/5, and needs to be on board with a board state in order to really get going means that Castro is just kind of inherently fair as opposed to unfair. Because remember, when we're thinking about power level of Brawl, we are thinking more in terms of lines of like what Rao can do, what Cruel Claw can do, and that is the measuring stick for which most of these are going to be going. Like, I think Castro is just fair enough. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Cruel Claw and Rao real quick. Because, again, measuring stick. Yeah. Like, Rao Crackling Wit is actually the new blue-red darling that I have seen going around. Rao, the Monsoon Mage, is probably the premier storm card, right up there along the likes of, say, Bergie for Ruby Storm, Urabrask, and this deck gets to just like run all of those. So no, Monsoon Mage gets to run all of those. Growl Crackling Wit. I feel like this isn't on the level of Monsoon Mage. I feel like Monsoon Mage does everything this deck wants to do, but just so much easier and so much better. Growl being 4 mana is a lot, surprisingly. Now, Crackling Wit can still win. Crackling Wit is still a solid deck. It's kind of in that Will and Rowan formula where if you underestimate it, it can take over a game. It can make a bunch of prowess otters. It can draw cards and filter. I have lost to this deck before, but I never really feel like I'm in as much Papika Mortal Fear as I do then I'm playing against Monsoon Mage or Niv Mizzet or anything like that. So, like, if Rao Crackling Wit is something that I would consider fair enough, then that's really not going to bode well for, like, literally any of the other otters here. Cruel Claw, though. Cruel Claw goes into the actual Brawl level tier. Cruel Claw is everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but, like, Cruel Claw... Okay, let me start that thought over again. Very autistic, train of thought spaghetti monster right there. Oh. No, where's my gargle? Okay. So Cruel Claw. It's in that mold of this card helps you circumvent and cheat mana costs. That Brawl is you're probably aiming for with a very strong competitive Brawl deck. When Cruel Claw hits, you discard a card, you get the exile cards through your deck until you cast a card by discarding a card into its mana cost. Usually it's going to be like an Emrakul. Basically, it's the Atali method of play big spell for free, except you're playing this much faster. I've had instances where people have successfully set up a arena, the Arena of Glory, that will give Cruel Claw haste. So the fact that Cruel Claw can very easily get that haste because of red, the menace makes it really hard to block, especially in that early game when you only have like a mana dork or two, or because they're playing red-black, they have ways to kill the mana dorks that would have helped block Cruel Claw otherwise. It means that you have to mulligan aggressively to deal with Cruel Claw before Cruel Claw gets going. And there are games that it just steals because of that. But it's also easier to disrupt because of that sort of interaction. It's actually like at the sweet spot, I think, for what makes a really high risk, high reward payoff type Brawl deck. And I kind of like that. It's not so elusive that it's hard to deal with, but also if it does hit, goodbye. You've effectively lost the game. It's basically the it's basically a Kaliat level design, I think. So when we talk about actually Brawl level, this is what I'm thinking of. And on that note, most of these cards I think are going to end up being on the fair level. The legends for this deck just, they aren't that strong compared to some of the previous sets, especially things like Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We take a look at Zoraline Cosmo Collar. We were playing the Soul Sisters version of the deck that wasn't just last week, that was like a few weeks ago, and that version is a lot of fun. I have seen a couple of other builds that focus more on the milling and permanent reanimating since then. I think those look a lot of fun, but because of the restrictions on Zoraline, because that does get expensive, I think Zoraline is also on that list of just, you know, it's fine. It's not like crazy actually Brawl power level, but it is, you know, perfectly serviceable as a black-white commander. Friend the Relentless, I think, is on that Brawl power level, if only because Relentless Rats, powered by Blue, powered by Counterspell interaction, powered by the ability to reload your hand. I think Relentless Rats is one of those decks that can just steal games, especially if you manage to get ahead. And then it gets really hard to actually do a whole lot. The fact that Vren is 4 mana is circumvented by the fact that you do get a Ward 2 creature, that it is actively Bajuka bogging and banishing all of your opponent's creatures as they block. I'm willing to put Vren at a power level that is actually Brawl level. And that's just kind of with the acknowledgement that Relentless Rats in general can be very good. Vren just takes it to the place where it needs to, in order to actually compete with some of these other decks. Because if you're on the back foot from trying to block all these rats, you're not really gonna have a chance to actually get your Weasel going. Bria, Riptide Rogue. This is one of those cards that I'm just gonna straight up put it into the DNP section along with Alania Divergent Storm. I did have like one Alania deck that I was currently brewing and that I was messing around with. But then the fact that Otters apparently just got 4 fucking commanders. And then there was a 5th one that came out with the Alchemy. Actually, hold on. Let's add in the Alchemy version real quick just to make sure we didn't skip anything. No? Okay. Yeah, just no action on Bria whatsoever. Where are you, Bria? Yep, Bria goes into the DMP, so does Alania. Unfortunately, I think the context in which I am playing these is going to weigh the terrain too much as well. You know, for example, losing out on all those streams meant not having a chance to see some of these commanders. Idris, the Hydrostatic Surge that came out in Alchemy Bloomburrow, is one of those. I got to see this card a couple of times, but because it is so cost heavy, it just... I feel like I needed to see more games with it where it could potentially really pop off. I could try watching more of Amy's videos for some of these cards, and that's probably what I'm gonna have to start doing. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to start watching more of Amy's videos just to like increase my sample size. So that's something I'll keep in mind going forward. Idris is another one of those that's honestly just good enough. I don't think I actually... No, I didn't. I forgot to include the Alchemy cards in here, so like that's my bad. But know that Idris is also going up here into the fair enough category. I think Idris is just kind of another card that's in the long line of really expensive cards where if you get to untap, it's probably really good, but you have to be able to untap for that. Gev Scaled Scorch. I might be a little biased, just a little bit, because of the success that the Lizard deck was having. I think this is still in that category of fair, but only because, one, the lizards that you have access to really aren't the greatest. I would still like to see this deck get some more really quality lizards. I would like to see someone take this and try and make a really aggressive aggro deck using things besides just the lizards to really put that over the top. But for now, Gev also goes into the fair enough tier. I think if you want to play red-black aggro, like, if you're looking at, like, just the things that red-black can do, it's like there's Gev, or for one more mana, you could actually just be Chitty and Emrakul. Again, that's the measuring stick that we're going by here. Camilla the Sea Miser. I feel like I saw this played exactly once, but for all intents and purposes, just was not seen a lot of. The same kind of goes with Uru, Acorn Scounger. What does this card even do? When Acorn Scrounger enters, you may forage. When you do, conjure Chitter Spitter onto the battlefield. Whenever one or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, you may sack a token. If you do, put an Acorn counter on Chitter Spitter. And then Chitter Spitter says, beginning of your upkeep, you can sack a token. If you do, it gets an Acorn counter. Squirrels you control get 1 for each counter on Chitter Spitter. Then you can pay 1, tap, make a squirrel. I have not seen anyone playing these 2 squirrels, at least not in my regular queues. I know they're out there. These you don't print squirrel commanders and it's just no one ever plays them ever. But like the black-green commander that people have been playing is Yigra, Eater of All, and I'll admit, I thought this card was just kind of a dumb beat stick the first few times that I played against it, and that's because that's kind of how it was. But eventually people started realizing, oh wait, oh shit, there's synergy here. It turns all of my stuff into food, into an artifact. It turns them all into food. And there's actually some really disgusting synergies you can do with that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there's a lot of the Lord of the Rings stuff that has food synergy. And a lot of stuff that can start popping up there. The fact that Yigra does require you to basically sacrifice a creature in order to target it can be a lot for some decks, especially control decks that are creature light. Being a 6/6 for 5 mana means that it is a very hard buddy to block, especially if it's ramped out early. So like, Yigra is kind of just a dumb beater, but there's actually a couple of levels to this cat that I did not consider during preview season. So for that, I'm really, let's see. I will enthusiastically put Yigra into an actual Brawl power level where the squirrels fail. Mirror Trash Tactician is an interesting one. I've played this deck some, and on paper it looks like it's just Raccoon, right? It looks like it's just another red-green ramp deck. I think the raccoons that came with Bloomburrow and also came with Alchemy are strong enough that you have a case for making this more of an actual theme deck. But it's the fact that if you can get to the point where this card expends 8, that it really starts to actually roll over. Now, is it on the level of something like a Tali? No. In fact, if you look at most of the red-green commanders, you're looking at stuff like, oh, let's see. Ruby is probably like the closest to like direct comparison that I can think of. But I think of red commanders, I think of like Clothis, thinking of Domri, both the big Domri and small one. Alana Lena are pretty good. Minsk and Boo. I don't think Ansrag is like, ooh, that is a Tali tier. That isn't a Tali tier. A Tali tier mole. You're comparing it to potentially Roxanne, which is also on that S tier listing. Xenagod is what I would call actually Brawl level. Do I think the Raccoon is good as Xenagod? I don't think so. I think maybe Hugs could probably get there, because Hugs does have the ability to potentially draw additional cards, but that also requires like the bigger yeah, Hugs is just like a really good mana sink. Hugs is like the definition of probably better as a support card. So if that merit, I don't think the Raccoon would actually like be Brawl power level, but I think it's also like really good as a card, as like a supporting card. it's kind of hard for me to say. Some of these cards on the fair enough are here because they aren't really good 99 support. But I would consider putting the raccoon into a red green, just kind of like most of the other red green commander decks, which is where Hugs go. Maybe, you know what, man? I think maybe as a commander, the raccoon can go up here. I guess it depends. It depends on personal experience, and your mileage will vary. Kind of the same with Hoppy Mad. Maybe set everything back here. I'm gonna skip over rabbits real quick so I can take them. So I can do them all together. Clement the Worry. Actually, hold on. We only have like Mabel as like the mouse commander. Okay, well, I already put Clement on the tier list, so let's go ahead and talk. I think this card is too fiddly. I think there is a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with the leapfrogging ability. Just recycle your ETBs over and over again. But I think what this deck wants to do is way too slow to effectively use. I feel like this card is going to be one of those, you can definitely include it in a lot of the blue-green decks that want to do this sort of stuff. Lagrella comes to mind, actually, as potential tech. But I think Clement is actually the definition of definitely better as like a 99 rather than its own commander, as opposed to something like Mirror, where, you know, because it's a raccoon and it scales very nicely with more raccoons, it actually can be the helm of its own deck. Clement also works very nicely with frogs, but, you know, sometimes the cost of including those frogs is not enough to like justify putting in some of the lesser frogs. Unlike when you play Castrol, Zoraline, Gev, the baseline of including more of that creature type actually can pay dividends. Let's talk about Mabel real quick before we... Oh, we got like, what, 2 other frogs? Yeah, let's talk about Mabel real quick before we talk about the 3 color frogs. I've seen Mabel a few times, and every time that I've played against a Mabel deck, I think, wow, this really could have just been an Akiri deck or a Nahiri deck or literally any other red-white equipment commander. I feel like Mabel probably wants to be a Voltron commander because the Cragflame manages to give her a ton of different keywords, kind of gives her that a little bit of that keyword soup ability, but she's not quite a Chroma levels. I think this card goes very well with a Soul Eater in a lot of equipment decks, but generally speaking, I don't think Mabel holds a deck together on her own. Even if you try and play a mice-themed deck, there just are not enough mice to really justify making a whole 99 out of it. Now, if you wanted to do standard Brawl with Mabel, I think you have a higher... I think you make a much stronger case for that, especially since the types of red-white commanders in standard Brawl are significantly lesser. Or, yeah, fewer. Yeah, fewer. But you just have so many better options, even at the rare wild card rarity. I think you can include her just fine. I think the fact that she comes with a Cragflame and you get 2 cards for 1 is fine. But Mabel herself just does not impress me. Alright, let's cover the rabbits real quickly. This will be pretty easy. I have not seen anyone playing Phineas Ace Archer, despite the fact that I thought that this would be my opportunity to really get into the hardened scales variant. I have not seen anyone playing Buxton Decorated Host. I have not seen anyone playing Bryke Long Ear of the Law. I have seen people playing Balin the Haymaker. In fact, I remember at least one game that may or may not have been on stream very vividly, but that's a game that we kind of took over and won. I think Balin has a lot of really good synergy, but I haven't seen him really pop off, especially compared to some of the other Naya commanders, some of the other Naya token commanders even. So like, neither the one alchemy card on here is not on here. So this is a did not play, and Brandon is probably fair enough. This was not a powerful set. In fact, it kind of feels a little underpowered, all things considered. And then there's just like 2 more frogs to talk about. Helga, Skittish Seer, and Glorb, Calamity Augur. I'll start with Helga. I think Helga is really dependent on her surviving. Otherwise, it's just a weaker Chu Lane. Chu Lane is an S tier commander though, as opposed to Helga. Chu Lane is fucking core vault. Chu Lane is heckin'. Let's see. Chilane, Corvold, Layla, Sir Gwen. Wasn't there a 5th one? God, there was a 5th one. It was, what was it? John? No, it's just those 4, I think. I think it was just those 4. Yeah, because there were Brawl deck commanders. Yeah. Was there? Why do I feel like there was a 5th one, but I don't remember a 5th one? Weird. Anyway, so Helga is cool, but every time I've played against Helga, it feels like it's kind of fizzled. There was one game that I lost to a Helga deck, but that was because Chu Lane came down, and at that point, it's Chu Lane winning the game, not Helga. Glarb kind of feels like the same way. Like, both of these frogs feel like weaker versions of decks that already exist. I've seen people playing Sultai and they've been playing Glarb, and every time I see Glarb, I go, okay, phew. It's not Nashi. Sidisi would be a little harder. It's not Muldrotha. Muldrotha and Nashi are probably like the bigger cards to worry about when you're playing Sultai. So like, neither one of these are winning the game on their own, because if they're in if they're helming the commander decks, they are there as enablers, they are there as filters, and they are not the win condition of its own, or like a combo piece, the way that something like Nashi can turn into. And for that reason, these really are both, also on that fair tier. Like, damn. So, what I really should have done is take a clip of Modern Horizons. Take a clip of the tier list that I got there. And compare, so that way we can have a compare and contrast between sets. But given that we all know that Nadu is up here in the super obnoxious category, it kind of doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter. Another thing that's going to happen is that unless there's just like a really cool or powerful interaction with a specific commander, it's just not going to see a lot of play. Brawl is a format where a lot of the cards that see play from a new set are going to be the ones that are either already fit into a new archetype and could do that new archetype stuff well enough. Kind of like how we've seen Ral Zarek, how we've seen the Deluge, the Blue Elemental. Kind of how we've seen Surveil Frog or Helga. Or they just don't see play. Like, when Ral Zarek is available, why would you play any of the other Storm Otters? Unless there was just like a specific thing that you really liked that commander was doing. Like, if you want to play Storm, you play the Storm commander. And then Lumra, Cruel Claw, Ren, and Yigra, those actually are strong enough that people think that they're worth playing. But that's just, my observation. So this is going to be my official Bloomburrow tier list for the for this edition. And now for something else. By the way, if you have any thoughts, opinions, or if you agree or disagree, feel free to go ahead and leave a comment below. Let me go ahead and... By the way, we're not going to go for the full 3 hours today. We are, in fact... Let's see. How do I start the... Let's see. That's right. Today we're doing a slideshow that I threw together in like 10 minutes presentation. If I can remember how to play the slideshow. There we go. Ah! It's blinding. I'm blinded by the light. Wrapped up like a douche in the middle of the night. But yeah, this is officially the goals segment of the presentation. So overall, yeah. As I'm getting more comfortable with figuring out exactly what I want to do with these blog posts, as I get more comfortable with the format and how I want to do this stuff, this is going to end up being the back half of the presentation, which is talking about my goals for Duskmourn. Oh my god, having this not be dark mode is killing me. I'll fix that for the next time. I literally thought about doing. I literally realized I could use the Google Slides to keep track of my notes and everything at the literal last second. So apologies here. But with Duskmourn coming out, I am not really interested in brewing anything from it. I think there's exactly two. Actually, hold on. Maybe one could bring us back to the. Let's actually pull up Mythic spoiler real quick. Or actually, I can one better. What was Duskmourn set? Hold on, let me just click on Duskmourn full preview. DSK, okay. Okay, so I'm looking through all the new commanders that came out with Duskmourn, and I'm not really inspired by any of these. I am going to take a look at Swarmweaver, because I'm still looking for that black-green commander that lets me go all in on graveyard stuff, and this one does have Delirium, but it remains to be seen how good an Anthem that gives Death Touch is. Arabella Abandoned Doll is kind of cool. I like that it's an uncommon. It's a toy. It has a specific theme to build around. There might be something to do with the Jolly Balloon Man. I am always taking a look at red white commanders. Nashi is whatever. I'm really interested in Victor, Rip, Nico, Winter, Zamone, Marvin. It's just nothing really grabs my eye. Altanaka, Norin, Kona, Tivar, Dogloff, Mindskin, the Wanderer, Toby. Nah, none of them just do it for me. Maybe at some point I'll be inspired to build a deck with some of these cards, because I'll realize that either there's some tech that I overlooked, or someone will be like, hey, I made this deck looks cool. Maybe I'll even be watching Amy to keep tabs on some of these cards. I'm definitely going to be paying attention when they show up in Brawl across from me, and I'll let that speak on whether it's worth checking out or not. Overall though, it feels somehow sparser than Bloomburrow. Bloomburrow at least had cool archetypes to try out. Like it was introducing archetypes that we don't really have access to on Arena. This really just this is going to be a tuner set. What it really comes down to. We're going to see Marina Vandrel. She's a 5-color enchantments deck. Like there was already the shrine. Yeah, there was already like the shrine commander for stuff like that. So remains to be seen. I am interested in using a lot of the survival tech in Derevi. I think that's going to be really cool. I think that's going to help make Derevi an actual deck. So there will be brewing, but it's going to be more brewing using cards in the 99 rather than as commanders. Yeah, damn it. So with that being said, my goal for Duskmourn is to use this as an opportunity to branch out into other archetypes that I'm not as practiced with, and to remember how to play those decks. Because at some point, I did know how to play Control and Ramp Stompy. I did understand how to play those decks and how to attack them better and stuff like that. But I need to relearn that in the Brawl context because it's such a different format from Commander. So you are going to be seeing streams where I'm playing more Control. You are going to be seeing streams where we are just having a good time playing, I don't know, maybe we'll build the big Stompy Lumra deck. And then that also means checking out Prime.deck. We're going to throw our hat in and we're going to become the villain that we have always sworn to defeat. I hate it when people play with my cards. Like I just get so touchy about that. But maybe I'll have less of an issue if I actually try the deck itself. And that goes with all the other gimmick decks too. So at some point we're going to try out the Layla gimmick deck. We'll try out the Crucius gimmick deck. But maybe disguise it as the Painter, as we have seen. It'll kind of depend on whatever catches my fancy at that time. And this also kind of goes hand in hand with the next thing. So I see what's going on here. Huh. I'm gonna shrink this. There we go. Not perfect, but works at work. God, no, stop that. Ah. Don't worry, this is a learning process. Anyway, so the reason I wanted to like glow this up, because one of the other things that I want to do is I want to follow up on doing more of these budget decks. I want to do more streams to help make Brawl more accessible. Because if more people can get into Brawl, then I'll have more people to interact with through my Brawl streams and my Brawl videos. And one of the ways to do that is to kind of start innovating on something that Amy did a year ago, which was building stuff like Atraxa, building stuff like Calyx on a budget, building decks with cards that are really strong, and showing that if you just want to start playing, you don't necessarily need to dump in all of your rare and mythic wild cards to. Now, one of the things that might help with that is doing standard Brawl as well. I'm going to have to experiment. But given that my preference is to play, well, what's basically historic Brawl as opposed to standard Brawl, historic is going to be my primary focus. I think if I was trying to be more competitive with standard brawl, for whatever that means, then I could focus more on standard brawl. But historic, I don't know. I just appreciate historic more. It rewards me for having put in all the cards. And Amy has said that her budget decks are underperforming compared to her other videos. She's not really inclined to do more budget decks. That is entirely her prerogative. I absolutely get that. When she has like a bigger channel dedicated to brewing and showing off new commanders, then hey, you know what? That's a crumb I'll take for myself. That's a crumb I'll take for myself. And so that kind of goes into, you know, the goal for what we're going to try to do with these budget decks. I'm going to try and make them competitive. The commander slot is the only rare that's allowed for the deck. And then there's going to be some, actually, you know what? Let me just pull up the thing. So when I say I want these to be competitive, I mean I want these decks, these budget decks, to be on par with the meta that they're going to be introduced to. So, for example, as soon as I made the Malcolm deck, because the commander is weighed so heavily in matchmaking, that means that Malcolm is getting matched up against a lot of Nadu decks. I've also seen Malcolm get matched up against Niv Mizzet, like actual Niv Mizzet Perun, the one that says whenever a player casts a spell, they draw a card, and whenever they draw a card, they deal damage. Like basically, you know, one of the Curiosity plus Niv equals win Niv Mizzets. And hey, Curiosity is on Arena, so like they can just win like that. And this deck beat it. This deck actually factually beat a Niv Mizzet deck. And then it's been eating a lot of the Nadu decks. Now, that is dependent on, you know, being able to mulligan for a hand that can actually interact and stop Nadu. There's been a lot of really good back and forth between Budget Malcolm and Nadu. And that's actually made me really enjoy playing Control. Like, yeah, we aren't just using Malcolm as a 2-mana flying beater. And then we're using Malcolm to play things like, you know, Lay Claim, Imbolos's Clutches, Rise on the Tides, Boon, you know, just like big draw spells to keep the gas going. And then we're also playing Cryptic Serpent, Telerian Terror to help, you know, capitalize on the fact that we're playing so many instants. We're kind of playing this like, you know, Delverless Delver, which is fantastic. And this deck has just performed. It has performed. Like you saw the untapped percentage, right? You saw that of these decks, that I have played a lot of, this deck currently has a 73% win rate after going like 8-3 against actual factual Nadu decks that aren't playing their rares. Okay, I'm in. I'm here for it. And on that note, we have updated the track, so we have made a budget Pock deck. Pock was originally going to be in the Zuza deck, but then I realized that Azusa is on that level of, she's like Glarb and Helga, in which she is not the win condition herself, but rather she's part of a combo or an engine. And Azusa really does need rares in order to function. She needs things like Crucible World, World Conduit, just anything to help that lets you start cycling your lands from the graveyard to play them over and over and play multiples. Especially things like fetch lands. Like, we can put in all the budget fetch lands we want, but if we don't have a Crucible or a Rune Mapper, then Azusa just cannot function as anything other than a straightforward ramp deck. And even then, you need to have, like, a lot more draw in order to get it going. Whereas if you switch to a commander like Pock, a commander who is on that S tier, I would say S or A tier. and they can just generate value. They can circumvent cost. They can be a big beat stick on your own. It gives you a lot more flexibility to kind of lean into the idea of like, okay, this is actually mono green control. We're going to play all of our fight spells. We're going to play all our ways to protect him. And then we're also going to give him evasion. And the deck works. The deck works. Now, is it the Game Busters deck that the higher tiered version would be if you decided to invest some more rare and mythic wildcards? No. 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 I think the powered up version is the powered up version. But the deck is functional and competitive. And as Arena gets more of these playable commons and uncommons, that only gets better. So, yeah, it's also just a really fun deck building challenge. It hits this spot between theory crafting and actual gameplay execution that is very satisfying. If you've seen that so you want to brew and brawl video that I did, then you'll know that there was a dissonance between making a deck I felt like was cool and unique versus how it would actually perform in game. And restricting myself to only using the commander as a rare, restricting myself to commons and uncommons, while still having a clear goal of this deck needs to be competitive with its environment, checks both of those boxes at the same time. And I have the other ones in the pipeline as well. I do have the No Rares Nadu deck that's in here. Some of the tech that I've been pulling out from Malcolm and from Pac is actually going to make its way into here. I think Nadu works well as a Voltron commander as well, considering that he's a fairly large body and you have significantly less targets to really abuse the combo. I think if you want to do combo Nadu on Arena, you're already having to rely more so on the Bristly Bill, Roaring Earth style of that combo. Just cutting out the rares makes that a little bit harder because, again, you don't get Bristly Bill, you don't get the Nantaku Bestow. You have to work with Zendikar's Royal and Spore Mound. But figuring out exactly what kind of enablers you need is also just part of the fun puzzle. There was a game where we actually won because we bestowed Wavebreaker onto Nadu, and then we fucking beat their face in. Kind of on that vein, I do have a No Rares Kalia version going on. This is one that is going to get tuned with Duskmourn as well because I saw that there's a new uncommon demon. So we're going to figure out exactly what the play is. This is one I'm also looking forward to tuning up, and has to be competitive in the same instance. And then there's just other stuff. Like I said, we are still going to be brewing with Derevi. All the enchantments and artifacts that are coming out to enable Delirium means that Alayla is going to have a lot more tools, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm still looking for that black-green commander that gives me that good old graveyard feel that I want. So there's still plenty to do. And there's still plenty to brew. And maybe I'll even come back and finish taking a look at some of these theme decks that I wanted to work on, like But Noise, like Raccoons, even see if we can make some of the other stuff work. We've got room, basically, is what I'm saying. So this is a very good tune-up phase. Got like 3,400 gold. Not that you can see it because it's covered by the Spotify label. And that's, let's see. I don't think there's a whole lot else to go over. Hour and a half. We're currently running an hour and a half. I've been doing a lot of yapping. So let's go ahead and start wrapping things up with any other final thoughts that we had. I had fun playing Magic this season. Sometimes it's nice to have hyper specific themes that you want to work on. It's nice to be able to branch out and get some cool stuff going there. But it's also really important to revisit older decks that you enjoyed and to see if you still enjoy them. I try and get all of these decks onto Moxfield. There's inevitably going to be some that I just completely forget to upload. So if there's a deck that you wanted to see that I've showcased before and you want the list, let me know and I will update my Moxfield. In general, though, I'm going to remember this as the season where I wish I could have played just a little bit more. But hopefully that means that this upcoming season, I feel a lot less pressure to actually have things ready and presented specifically for stream. I think that's one of the bigger things. I guess one of the things that I can wrap up with are the state of the streams going forward and where I want to go with them. And this is going to be for Future Hero Girl as much as it is for the audience who's listening to this. I am still very much looking for the color combinations. I'm still looking for a definitive commander to play in each color combination, and sometimes you're just not going to have one available for what is currently there. Like if we go ahead and we take a look at all of the blue-white commanders. Nope, that doesn't work. All right. Nope, that also doesn't work. If we look at all the blue-white commanders, there's a few here that I still have not had a chance to try out. Some that I probably have wanted to try out. I want to figure out exactly what it is I want to do. I want to figure out what version of anything I can play that would give me satisfied feels. If I want to play blue-white control, what does that look like for me? Why do I get frustrated with it? What do I want to do with it? The outcomes taught me that I can enjoy playing control. I can enjoy the interaction, the planning, the needing to live long enough and having to like plan around stuff. That part's really enjoyable to me. So then why do I struggle with playing things like staying on with Hilda? Why do I get frustrated against playing things like Teferi? Is Castrol a deck that I actually want to hold on to and play because, you know, you get to play with birds, you get the swing? Do I want to play more of a tempo aggro commander like that? Is that going to look like playing like Prince Imrahal? I don't know. We're getting a new Kaido. Do I want to play more ninjas? I tried playing Umezawa. I've played Tasha and stuff like that. Those are okay decks. Maybe Tasha's another contender for the challenge. Could play Resco Clockmaker. Could play Tasha. I don't know. Maybe I end up sticking with Ren as my blue-black commander because you can just play rats. I want to expand. I want to get more experience. Because when I see streamers and players like Amy, and I see them playing a lot of stuff, I see them with their specific gripes and with their specific complaints about the format, their criticisms, their critiques, whether they're fair or unfair, their preferences. I want to understand myself better. I want to understand myself and what this format means and what Magic and what I want from it as a game. Why do certain cards push my buttons more than others? What is it going to take for me to be fine? My goal is ultimately to rub the salt off. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I want to be an unsalty streamer. I don't want to get like really angry or frustrated when I play Magic because I love Magic. Magic is a huge part of who I am and who I've been. And Brawl is one of the only ways I can really interact with it right now. I love Commander, so getting to play Brawl is the closest thing I'll get to that sort of, going down to the game shop, or sort of being able to pull my partners into playing together. Which, hey, they love Magic, and I love playing Magic with them. But also, sometimes I just like queuing into the Brawl and jamming a bunch of games. And I really want to see what it has to offer beyond the mid-range piles that I've gotten really, really comfortable. Most these decks that I currently have favorited are the ones that are currently surviving. Like, these are the ones that I very happily come back to and play over and over again. Maybe like a couple of exceptions. And having one for each color combination is just another thing that's really important to me, because that's how Commander was for Paper with me. I love the idea of having a commander for every color combination. And someday we'll get there. Someday we'll get to the point where all of these slots are filled. It's not going to be today, and it's definitely not going to be tomorrow when Duskmourn comes out. But, the more that I understand myself and the more that I can grow as a player, I think the closer we'll get. All right. And so that's going to wrap everything up. We're going to go ahead and end this early. It's been an hour and a half of full-on yapping. So, hey, good for us. Good for us. Reminder that on Wednesday, I'm going to be collabing with Kyria to play some Frog Fractions. I am also going to be collabing on Friday for Lila's birthday party stream. We're going to be playing Satisfactory. I've already sunk like 10 hours into the game on my own. That game is like catnip for me. I love it. And then we are going to be back on next Monday. Next Monday is going to be the first chance that we really get to show off a lot of the new cards and stuff that I've been messing around with. Normally that would be the Wednesday, but again, the aforementioned Frog Fraction stream has taken that away. We're just going to do a quick evaluation. Take a peek. We are good to go. Okay. So then I will see you all next time. Same hero time, same hero channel. Good night, everyone.